It was early July 2014 when two friends set out on a canoe trip across the northern reaches of Lake Vermilion, Minnesota. They had planned the trip as a long weekend of fishing and exploring the smaller islands scattered through the lake's western arm. Both were experienced outdoorsmen and had spent plenty of time camping in the Boundary Waters area, so being deep in the northern woods didn't bother them. What they heard on the second night of their trip, though, left them both shaken. A strange, echoing chatter that sounded eerily like human speech coming from the forest, followed by movement and deep vocalizations unlike anything they had ever heard. The two men launched from a public access point on the south shore late in the afternoon. They paddled across the open water for nearly an hour before reaching a chain of small islands, one of which had an open point suitable for camping. The area was quiet and remote. There were no other cabins or roads nearby, just forested shoreline and a few stretches of rocky beach. They set up camp near the point's tip, pitching a small tent about 20 yards from the water. They built a small fire, cooked fish they had caught earlier, and listened to loons calling across the water as the sun went down. The sky was clear and filled with stars. Just before midnight, the men turned in for the night. The forest across the lake was dark and silent, broken only by the faint ripple of water against the shore. Sometime around 1:30 a.m., the older man woke up to use the bathroom. He stepped out of the tent, walked toward the waterline, and stood for a moment looking across the still surface of the lake. The moon was bright, reflecting off the water. He heard nothing at first. Then, faint but distinct, came what sounded like muffled talking from across the lake. At first he thought it was another couple of campers. The sound carried clearly in the still air. But after several seconds, he realized the rhythm was strange. It didn't follow normal speech patterns, no distinct words, no pauses that made sense. The tone rose and fell like conversation, but the sounds themselves didn't form anything recognizable. He stood still, listening. The chatter continued for nearly 20 seconds, then stopped abruptly. He strained his ears but heard nothing more. Thinking it might be echoes from somewhere farther away, he returned to the tent and lay back down. Around 3 a.m., he woke again, this time because his friend was shaking his shoulder. The other man whispered that he could hear something talking out in the trees. They both sat up and listened. At first there was nothing, but then it came again. The same pattern of sound he had heard earlier, but louder and closer. It was not coming from across the lake, but from the forest behind their campsite.